a microphone will come to you if you say who you are, who your question is directed towards, and what it is. That'd be great.
Thank you very much. My name's Lewis Walpert. It's directed to anyone who's prepared to answer it. And that the question is not unhappiness quite an important emotion because it motivates you to action in a much stronger way than happiness?
Who would like to take that one? Richard. Can you hear? You might need to come to... are all the microphones turned on here? Or Richard, could you just come to the lectern and then we'll try to get the mic sorted out while you do that. Thank you.
If it's motivating you to do something different, it must be because it's a bad thing to be experiencing. Now, of course, if the result is that you then become happy again, that's great. But I think one of the most dangerous doctrines is that misery is in itself good.
I'll just add to that. Is my microphone working? Can anyone hear me? Yeah. So I think two things come to mind for me. One is, what we're absolutely not saying is that people should be taking a naively positive view on their lives and they should be ignoring those aspects in their life that are unhappy and challenging. That's not right. And in fact, over the long term, that's a route to poor mental health. That's a problem for us. But actually what we are saying is that actually within the context of a life that is a mixture of emotions, unhappiness, happiness, and a whole range in between, is that we can benefit from choosing to focus our attention on those things that are good more than those things that are bad. That doesn't mean we don't act on the things that are bad. It means that, quite as you say, actually, that it gives us an incentive to try and act to put things right. So I think I'd agree with I'd agree with the sentiment of what you're saying, which is it could spur us on, but as quietly as Richard said, it's because we want to move away from happiness generally towards something better.
Thank you. Apparently we have more people than microphone faders, which is why we might need you to speak up a little bit. The next question. Yes.
A year's time, how you would measure the success with some evidence, how you would evaluate the campaign.
How do you measure its success?
Shall I take that one?
I think that's probably for you, that one.
It's a great question, and of course, what we've set ourselves, as you may have noticed, is a hugely ambitious overall mission. And I think every organisation needs a vision and a really ambitious aim. And I think that the most important metric of success for a movement towards a happy society is literally that we see progress in our happiness. So, as Richard laid out at the start, we have, not particularly in great detail, but we have been measuring and tracking people's self-evaluated happiness since the 1950s. We're going to do a lot more of that moving forward with the government's ambitions to measure that. But actually on those measures, we haven't got any happier as we've got so much richer. We're now going to have the data over the coming years to look at that, and I think success for this movement, not for our organisation, but for the movement as a whole, will be that finally, over the next 5, 10, 20 years, we see that graph going up in a way that it just hasn't. We've seen the growth in GDP go up, but we haven't seen the growth in how people feel about their lives. So at a very ambitious level, that's what we'd like to play a part in contributing to. Of course, we in our own right can't make that happen, although I think the people that we influence could themselves create ripples that trigger that. But what we want in the nearer term is for hundreds of thousands of people to join this movement in the UK alone, before we move globally, and to take practical action. So we'd like to measure this in terms of how many people have we inspired to do something different as a result. And that could be one of these actions we propose. It could be something else that's within the spirit of this. But it's about turning this idea into something that actually leads to changes in people's lives. It's very hard to measure. We're going to work with our members to look at ways in which we track actions that they've taken and ways in which this ripples. And of course, with modern social media technologies and other things, it's easier to sort of see your impact through social networks. But we're aiming towards a really ambitious vision of seeing happiness actually increase.
Thank you. Does anyone have a question up here that, marvellous, if you could get the microphone to that gentleman.
Hi there, Jonathan Rouse on RSA. You've got lots of interesting actions for happiness, but most of these are directed towards people's control systems. There are our conscious thought, our ability to reflect, but not to their automatic systems, the things that we do automatically and habitually. I'm wondering if you have any thoughts on how to make things habitual, because we all know we should exercise more, we all know it's good to feel grateful. All of the advice you give, we know already. Information is not the problem. How do you turn the information into habits?
So how do you change people's thinking long term so they do it as a matter of habit? Would you like to say that, Anthony?
Well, it's partly by having the information. I don't think that all that many people do in fact know. I remember being terribly unhappy as a postgraduate at LSE, Richard, I'm afraid. And I was walking along Charing Cross Road, and I saw a book by Russell on How to Be Happy, I think was the title. And I didn't buy it. I walked up, and the next day I thought, I'm going to buy that, because I want to know. I'm fed up being unhappy. And I strode up from Charing Cross Station the next day to get the book, and it had gone. And I've been a miserable bugger ever since, and that's why I'm here now, actually. But the serious point there is it's often unhappiness that drives you. You know, I think unless my life had been unhappy, it's partly response to Lewis Walport's question over there. Unless you have been unhappy, I think many people here, perhaps, I wouldn't want to speak for you, have been driven to search for happiness through unhappiness. It's a powerful driver, and it's a very selfish thing, being unhappy, because it means you're entombed in yourself and you're thinking inwardly. So, it's unhappiness can often drive you, plus information. And this wonderful website, it has lots of information.
I would just to add to that, so I think information is important, but I think the subtlety in the question, which I also think is really important, is that information doesn't change behaviour. People who smoke know that smoking is bad for them, and I think actually it's a really important point being made, which is what drives changes in behaviour isn't just facts, it's actually emotional connection with things. So I think what we'd like to encourage people to do, and perhaps the website isn't the only best way of achieving this, is to try things, actually, because it's actually when you try something almost without understanding why to try it, that then triggers a response, a kind of reaction. For example, the 3 good things exercise we did, some of you may not have done that before, you may have thought that sounds like a silly idea, but actually when you go through that process, it actually triggers a kind of an emotional reaction which then guides your future behaviour. So sort of changes in behaviour then lead to a cognitive kind of processing of that. So I think the question is really important, and I hope that we can find innovative ways of doing that.
I know you would like to ask a question. If you could stand up, and if we could get a microphone over here to the middle here to this lady. Yes, thank you.
Hi, I'm Jenny North from Relates. Just a little bit of a gender analysis question. It seems that nurturing and caring are quite important aspects for what you've seen as promoting happiness. Women often get assigned the nurturing and caring roles in our society, possibly not necessarily due to their own desire. How can we redress that balance a bit so that men are empowered, incentivized, enabled to take on a bit more of that, which I do believe would make both sexes a lot happier?
Who would like to take that one? Siobhan, does this fall in your patch, do you think?
A little bit. I'm not sure it's going to be a hugely politically correct answer, though, but it's certainly what we've found is that men actually don't talk about their feelings in the same way that women do. And the example that's once given to me is that women, when there's a problem, will sort of sit around the campfire and we'll all give our opinion and we'll stay up all night if we have to reach an answer. And the modern day equivalent is friends, I suppose, having a glass of Chardonnay with your friends. Whereas men go into their cave and they don't come out until they've solved the problem. And woe betide any wife that stands at the entrance to the cave going, "Are you okay? Can I help?" So what we've found actually is that the way to reach men is often through their women, through their wives, through their partners. And we did a relationships course, which you helped us with, put the sort of the bones of it together. And it was an email course, but it was based on improving your relationships. And we couldn't get any men to sign up to it. But the wives or the partners, the women signed up to it, and there was a lot of exercises that had to be done with the men. And at the beginning it was, "Oh, I'm not doing it," total sort of, I'm not getting involved. But gradually, through their wives' positivity, they sat down, they did their exercise, and we had literally hundreds of emails saying, "I think this has saved our relationship." So I guess through women. Not very politically correct.
But if you look at the audience today, it's fairly evenly split between men and women. So I suppose in terms of interest, at least in today's launch, it's men and women. But you're asking, how do we get both parties involved in pushing out that message of happiness?
Can I just say that this point about education, if you can help boys talk and express their feelings when they're at school, if we can, you ask this question about how do we know this is going to work? Why should we change? If we can begin young, or if we can help our children or our grandchildren or our parents' children learn good things, truthful things about life, these 10 points, and they will find that it works. All those 10 points up there, they work. And therefore you're going to want to do it because you're incentivized to do it. If we can help our men, when they're still boys, learn to express their feelings, so to come out of Siobhan's cave and hug each other. Hey, that's great. And it's okay to talk. Then I think that will help them when they're men to emote better. I think so.